This is 5 in 10 from Skywatch TV. 5 things you need to know for Friday, June 7th, 2024. I'm Derek Gilbert. It's our Friday 5 summary of the 5 big stories of the week. Topic number 5 again this week, of course, is Israel. As the war in the north expands, residents and local authorities in the Upper Galilee and the Golan Heights upset with the Netanyahu government because Hezbollah has made that region unlivable. Hezbollah has essentially created a depopulated zone, a buffer zone in northern Israel. You might remember, if you're old like me, there was a time when Israel occupied southern Lebanon to keep Hezbollah away from Israel's borders and create a secure zone for people in Israel to live right up to the border with Israel. We have been through some of those communities. In fact, last year we visited the village of Metula, the northernmost community in Israel, as we were visiting the waters of weeping mentioned in the book of 1 Enoch, where Enoch is said to have delivered God's judgment to the watchers who had sinned on Mount Hermon to get their way to go through Metula. Metula is now a ghost town like many other communities in northern Israel. The Hezbollah rockets, as you can see from the image on the screen behind me, started brush fires that threatened the city of Kiryat Shmona, which is some distance from the Lebanese border. So you can see why people in the north of Israel are upset. People on the left want Netanyahu to take control of the situation. People on the right, members of his far-right coalition, or far-right members of his coalition, I should say. I don't consider Benjamin Netanyahu a far-right leader. Basically saying it's time to go to war with Hezbollah, and the IDF saying that a decision on whether to go to war will be coming soon. In fact, by the time you see this, that decision may already have been made. This is consistent with what we're hearing from our friends on the ground in Israel, some of whom still serving in the IDF reserves, that they expect war in Lebanon soon. This will not end probably before the end of 2024. Meanwhile, this week we also learned that Prime Minister Netanyahu said there will be no deal with Hamas, slammed the door on a proposal put forward by President Biden last Friday. Recent polls in Israel show that more than 80% of Israeli Jews, that's about 70% of Israel's total population, no longer believe they can live peacefully side by side with an independent Palestinian state. So it matters not that more than 140 nations around the world recognize Palestine as an actual independent political entity. Israel's like, ain't happening. It's just not going to happen. Should be interesting to see what happens to the White House tomorrow as pro-Palestinian protesters are rounding up busloads of people to surround the White House and demand a ceasefire tomorrow, Saturday, in Washington, D.C. Topic number 4, World War III. Meanwhile, things in Ukraine have not settled down. As we mentioned this week, 3 major developments. The U.S. allowing Ukraine to use its long-range missiles to strike targets inside Russia. Poland saying that the U.S. will hit all of Russia's forces in the special operations zone if Moscow uses a tactical nuclear weapon. And finally, President Putin saying he expects NATO to turn this into a full-blown shooting war sometime this summer. And then Ukraine doing something that is really unprecedented. They struck at least one of Russia's early nuclear warning systems. This has never been done before. In the 70-odd years since the creation of these early ICBM warning systems, no nation, Russia has not attacked ours, we've not attacked Russia's, China, England, France, the other nations with nuclear missile capabilities. There has never been an attack on these early warning systems, and since this is not really relevant to the actual war in Ukraine, it can only have been done as a prelude to something more ominous. The question is whether the United States gave Ukraine permission to do so. And we also learned this week, thanks to the Telegraph in the UK, that NATO has drawn up plans to rapidly deploy up to 300,000 troops to the front lines if Russia should expand the war to other NATO nations. Most of those troops would be American soldiers. This is the kind of military planning you hope that forward-thinking strategists would have in their back pockets just in case they're needed. But the fact that this is put out now for public consumption, here are the routes we'll be taking, is meant to let the public know that this is an option that's on the table. Again, we are walking into World War III. Sharon said 4 years ago that if Joe Biden became president, it would probably be to get us into World War III. So far, she's looking very prescient. Topic number 3, the bifurcation. That is the splitting of the world into 2 main factions. On the one side, you've got the United States-led NATO. On the other, you've got BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, but now also including Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, and perhaps soon to include NATO member Turkey. Turkey, a key member because it's the land bridge essentially between Asia and Europe. And being a NATO member, this really complicates alliances. Turkey also important because it is mentioned specifically in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, the uttermost north, not a reference to Russia. Yarkate Zephon points to Jebel al-Akra, which was the mountain that was sacred to Baal, Zeus, Jupiter, Satan. Essentially the rallying point for the army that comes against Israel in the last days rallies in Turkey. Keep your eyes on Turkey as we look for prophetic fulfillment in these last days. Topic number 2, the science was made up. Another big story this week, we noticed from several sources that the official narrative on the pandemic and how it was handled, changing. Researchers from the Netherlands have found, by analyzing data from 47 Western countries, this is what you call statistically significant, and not right-wing conspiracy theory, discovered there were more than 3 million excess deaths since 2020. The important point is that this trend continued even after the rollout of vaccines and containment measures for the spread of COVID-19. Reading between the lines, you get what we're saying here. We won't say it out loud because we like to continue preaching from this Mars Hill opportunity. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, these unprecedented figures, according to researchers, raised serious concerns. No kidding. Like maybe what they were telling us during the pandemic wasn't accurate. And in fact, it appears that they knew it. Dr. Anthony Fauci testified to a House subcommittee earlier this week, Monday, the House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, and admitted that a lot of the measures that they implemented and forced on us, like masking children, standing 6 feet apart, was made up. There was no research to back any of those moves. And yet we were told that that was the science, and thou shalt not question the science. Questioning is how you do science. Dr. Fauci, of course, he knows that. We also learned this week that data from the National Institutes of Health revealed that the agency collected some $710 million in royalties during the pandemic. This from late 2021 through 2023. Most of that, about $690 million of it, went to the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, which was headed up at the time by Dr. Anthony Fauci. Who benefits? That's always the question to ask when you're following any news story. By the way, we now learned this week that the United States government is closing in on a deal to fund a late-stage trial for an mRNA vaccine for avian flu by Moderna. Moderna getting the deal to develop an mRNA vaccine for bird flu. Be afraid, be very afraid. Here we go again. Coming up on the Friday Five, the end of the American Republic. That's next on 5 and 10.
God's creation is full of mysteries. What were the giants in the Scripture? Did dinosaurs roam the earth in the days of Noah? Are we alone in the universe? Join speakers Derek Gilbert, Rudy Landa, Michael Hoggart, Greg Patton, Mac Dominic, Josh Davis, and Micah Van Huss to explore the topics your Sunday school teacher didn't talk about at the Mysteries of the Bible Verse event in Cincinnati, Ohio, June 7th and 8th.
Item number 1 this week on the Friday Five, the Trump trial lawfare. I've not followed this, tried not to make this a daily story here because this has been covered by the corporate media, both left and right, ad nauseum. But the conviction of Donald Trump on 34 felony counts in the Manhattan court of Judge Juan Merchan, the charges filed by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, is a milestone on the road that leads to the end of the American Republic as you and I know it. Donald Trump is not our savior. He will not save the Republic. Donald Trump is a deeply flawed human being. This is apparent to all of us who voted for him We did not vote for him as pastor-in-chief, theologian-in-chief, father-in-chief, anything like that. Basically, I just appreciate the way he drives the deep state crazy. And I also support his America First agenda. Every nation should look after its own interests first and foremost. But the globalists inside the deep state, inside the Beltway, want to subsume American sovereignty and rights to a new global order. And you don't even need to be a believer in Bible prophecy to see how that's a bad thing. The prosecution of a political opponent by the sitting elected leader of the free world is the kind of thing we Americans thought only happened in third world nations. But it is here. The Biden White House has coordinated prosecutions not just in Manhattan, but also the Jack Smith cases in Florida, the Fani Willis case in Fulton County, Georgia. There are high-ranking members of the Democratic National Committee that have been involved in these prosecutions, and anyone who says otherwise is just not being honest. Frankly, you don't need to like Donald Trump to be alarmed at what happened in the Manhattan courtroom of Allen Bragg, a case that should never have been allowed to see the light of day, tried before a judge who should never have been allowed to try the case because of his open support of Joe Biden. This is orders of magnitude more egregious than anything Richard Nixon did that led to his resignation in August of 1974. Frankly, if these are the new rules by which the deep state wants to play, there are many Americans who are going to say, that's it, we're going to take our chips and go home. I think we're watching the early stages of the end of the American Republic. I don't say that with any joy. I just trying to read what's happening and just saying, come quickly, Lord. This week on Skywatch TV, we talk about the Whispering Ponies Ranch and the work that we do there, the work that we support there, Skywatch TV. We fund the work so that partner ministries like Royal Family Kids don't have to pay a dime. And Nita Horn, the CEO of Whispering Ponies Ranch, that is the guest on this week's Skywatch TV. Her son, Joe Artis Horn, very proud of what his mother and father have accomplished, hosting the program. You can see it right now at skywatchtv.com. You can also catch it at our Facebook page, our Roku and Apple TV channels, if you've got those. Of course, the program is broadcast on a number of Christian television networks around the country. The broadcast schedule posted at skywatchtv.com/channels. You can also catch it right now at rumble.com/skywatchtv or YouTube, the main program back on YouTube at Skywatch Television. But better yet, make sure we never get canceled by downloading our free mobile app. It brings all of our video content right into your smartphone or tablet, along with other features like an audio Bible with multiple translations, a calendar with upcoming events, a link to our streaming video site where you can catch Skywatch Films and Defender Investigative Films documentaries streamed right to your smartphone or tablet. And if you've got a relatively recent smart TV, you can cast video from the app to your TV using Google's Chromecast or Apple's AirPlay. It's actually pretty simple. It's available for iOS, Android, Amazon Kindle Fire. Again, absolutely free, and we have links to their app stores at our website, skywatchtv.com/app. Thank you for watching as we keep watch. Have a blessed weekend. And if you're going to be at the Mysteries of the Bibleverse Conference in Cincinnati later today, we look forward to seeing you. I'm Derek Gilbert. This is 5 and 10 from Skywatch TV.